Good evening, Canterbury. I'm Mike Yardley. Welcome to NewsMakers, where we debate the week's issues through Canterbury eyes. It's Politics Unplugged this week. Joining us, the MP for Christchurch East Labour's Lianne Dalziel and National MP Aaron Gilmore. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
And we're looking very bright with our daffodils, aren't we?
We are.
Good cause.
Yes, absolutely.
In fact, I bought mine off Gareth Morgan this morning at the airport.
Really? What an unlikely combo.
I thought that was really neat that somebody, in his position goes out there to collect for the Cancer Society. It's great.
Good old Gareth.
Yeah. Yes. Good old Gareth.
It was billed as a once-in-a-generation opportunity to get our liquor laws right. Has the government seized this opportunity or have they squandered it? There are a whole lot of sub-issues we'll walk through on this reform package, but overall, your impressions, Lianne?
Glaring hole is price. They haven't addressed the fact that you can buy alcopops for $1.50 a bottle, you can buy bottles of wine for $5 a bottle, and while the price is low at that end of the market, we're going to have people buying a lot of alcohol and getting very drunk before they come into town.
To what extent do political considerations go into the mix when a government is faced with this reform opportunity?
You look at the Law Commission report, there's 153 recommendations, 126 have been adopted in whole or part. So there's been a lot of work done to make sure we get the balance right. The issue for us is that we're most concerned about getting the culture change right, i.e. changing young people when they start learning to drink for the first time, and that's one of the big problems we have in New Zealand. Disproportionately, young people drink more than older people when you actually look at the statistics. So we want to change rules around RTDs. One of the laws, one of the big problems are RTDs, and I agree with Lianne, there is an issue there. So we're regulating the maximum alcohol limit for RTDs for 5%. And the issues turns around the size. Because you go out and you look at what's available, it's alcoholic Fanta that you can drink at the moment. And kids, I've got a 5-year-old daughter. We don't get this right in terms of the RTDs. The other people, 14, 15, 16-year-olds are drinking this stuff at the moment. And it's absolutely a disaster.
All right, let's start with pricing, minimum pricing. Why not ratchet up the cost of those RTDs, given they seem to be commonly regarded as a problem area?
You look at the work that's been done, you actually put a minimum price. The people who win are actually the bar owners, because the profit margins they make are horrendous. The people who lose are your supermarket, the variety of things you might get in your supermarket and in your local liquor store.
Sorry, you can't sell RTDs in supermarkets.
Well, you can get a situation when your local liquor stores might be next door to a supermarket, which is many of the cases in your mills and your super liquor. When you actually go through a process, is ratcheting up the price going to solve the problem? The answer is no. The evidence that work we've done suggests it will not actually solve the problem. Other things will. Hence, we've done 126 of the 153 recommendations.
Okay, how would you approach the pricing issue with the RTDs for starters?
Look, the Law Commission looked at 3 different ways of addressing price, and their preference was actually for excise tax. And I actually agree with the government on pushing back on that, and that's because the experience of the large retailers, the supermarkets, has been that they make the producers absorb the cost. So they won't pass on the price increase to the customer. So the only tax that would work would be at point of sale. Where I agree with Aaron is that it is important to target the effect, because you can buy a lot of wine, for $20 a bottle, $30 a bottle, good quality wine, and you can buy that at the supermarket or you can buy that at a bottle store. But why would you put the price of that up even further? That is not the drink of choice of the ones who are drinking too much. The drink of choice of the ones who are drinking too much are actually the $5 bottles of wine, the $1 a can beer, and the RTDs for $1.50. And that's the problem. If you leave the price so accessible to vast quantities of alcohol being drunk, then that is the problem, and that's how you fix it with minimum price. It doesn't affect the higher priced alcohol.
Just to be careful here, one of the things we have done is actually asking for more information disclosure on the issue of pricing to actually work out what is actually happening, because there's a lot of uncertain information about what actually at the margins or not low margins. There's a lot of discussion that there's a loss leading that is occurring. In some cases there has been. We're trying to work out actually, let the industry sort itself out first, gather the information before we actually decide. Jumping in excise tax will not work. Other issues in terms of pricing. Look, we don't want to actually change the housewife going to buy a bottle of wine, having the maximum choice available in the local supermarket.
Look,
that is a fundamental issue.
This is the nonsense of it, because of course we're not talking about impacting on the family member who's, I don't see that it's just housewives that go to supermarkets, buying a bottle of wine. In actual fact, this is about stopping a 22-year-old, I've got a real example in mind here, a 22-year-old who, when I went round to their place to catch up with them, I was staying the night at their place, there were 3 of them. They said, oh, sorry about the quality of the wine that we're drinking, but we couldn't afford to buy better quality wine. We paid $20 for 4 bottles of wine. Now, and they drank that before they went out. So, and that's the problem. What people don't get is that our environment has totally changed. We used to go out to the pub until 11 o'clock at night, and then maybe there'd be 1 or 2 nightclubs available till 3 in the morning. We'd all be home in bed asleep by 4, so there was no problem with some of the cultural change that we've seen today. What they do nowadays is that they drink at home first, they preload, and then they hit town.
Can I just...
10 standard drinks on average before hitting town.
The Hospitality Association have been very big on the idea of reinstating the offence of being drunk in a public place, and this was recognised by the Law Commission. I think the recommendation from Sir Geoffrey Palmer had been slightly reworked along this idea of a $250 bill, if the cops have to send you home or to a detox centre. Why hasn't the government followed through on that?
Well, it's not quite that simple. There has been put in place some changes in that particular law to try and take an example. There's been problems with people drinking in school car parks, for example, and putting in place that you can't do that. So we've looked at each of those recommendations, i.e. 153, and we've adopted all or in part 126 of them.
Yeah.
Some we've decided are not suitable right now.
But if I was an 18-year-old and I've done the preloading, as Lianne has outlined, and I go to town absolutely legless at 12, why should I be there? Why should I have a legal right to be trolling those streets off my scone?
Well, that's a good point. I mean, one of the issues is they're putting in place, the local district will have the ability to put in place restrictions and laws that they may want.
So we can make it an offence in Christchurch?
The council will have the ability, or the council district authority, which may not necessarily be a council, will have the ability to put in tighter restrictions. What we've put in place is minimum restrictions in terms of what they can and can't do. Just take an example of what's happening in New Brighton. You've put in place the alcohol liquor ban in New Brighton. It's been hard to police. But it does work to some extent. So we want to give councils the ability and choice.
That's the consumption. If you are drunk on Marine Parade at 11 o'clock tonight, that is not an offence.
Well, it's not an offence for you to walk across get to letterbox an offence when you're drunk either. So the trick is, how do you actually get that wording and that right? One of the problems we do have in terms of drinking in a public place, we've put in place these extra restrictions. School car parks is a classic example. Supermarket car parks. Classic example exists in Wellington at Chafers Marina. People go sit at the Chafers Marina and scull bottles of wine, and then they go to the nightclubs across the road.
Right.
It's a disaster. So you stop that, they'll go somewhere else, they'll stay at home.
OK, I've got to go to the break, but your response to this?
Well, I just think that that's ridiculous because, and obviously Aaron hasn't read the Cabinet paper because the police opposed it. That's actually why the government decided not to go down that track.
Why do you think they opposed it?
The police said no. It says in the Cabinet paper that they can't enforce the law as it stands at the moment, and they don't want to be arresting people just because they're drunk. They'd rather arrest people because they were doing something as a result of being drunk. Sure. But they said, don't please give us that because we cannot enforce it.
Interesting. All right, we'll take a break. Plenty to come. Do stay with us.